Lost in translation. Regional and minority languages, RMLs, are spoken by more than 40 million people across the European Union. Taking into account that language policy is an exclusive competence of member states, how can the EU further protect and promote RMLs that are on the verge of disappearing? Why is minority languages loss important? The 60 indigenous, regional, and minority languages that are officially recognized in the European Union are spoken by more than 40 million people, making their administration a very critical issue for both European Union and member states that are involved. Although their protection is ensured by national and European treaties, and respect for minorities and their rights has become a prerequisite for countries willing to enter the EU, RMLs are frequently marginalized in education as in social and political life. Language maintenance is the safeguard or the first of native language in a single person or within a speech community, especially among language minorities. This process, to be actually useful, should involve different levels: individuals, community, nation, and linguists, and must assure the integrity of community identities. This process is absolutely needed in order to maintain the necessary language diversity that defines a community. A language represents a repository for history of a society that finds in its values. But it also gives educational advantages such as bilingualism or a double approach to subjects, as much as economic benefits to the development of a local economy based on the use of the language, and national security, avoiding the threat of possible separatist movement. Protection of RMLs. The EU has adopted various measures to the preservation of RMLs, and the most important actions that have been taken internationally and at the European level are the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, UNESCO's Atlas of World Languages in Danger, Treaty on Functioning of the European Union, EU Charter of Fundamental Rights, European Charter for Regional or Minority Languages, Resolution on Endangered European Languages and Linguistic Diversity in the European Union, and the Protocol to ensure language and rights. Despite all these many treaties and charters, disparities can be discovered from country to country regarding their promotion and protection. In fact, thanks to all these regulations, good examples have been carried out by some member states, whose administrative approach distributes more power to local and regional governments, taking into consideration the fact that minority languages are generally spoken in small areas of the country. One country that has this attitude is Norway, that implemented the role of semi-parliament. And another positive example is Finland, where students who speak Swedish and are geographically dispersed are provided by the government with a free transport to schools where they can keep learning their language. On the other side, some countries act in a completely different way, promoting the unification and the development of the national language. Hungarian communities settled in Slovakia represent 10% of a country's population, but the Slovak language law imposed the use of only Slovak in public communications. Some member states, such as Belgium, Estonia, Latvia, Greece, Ireland, Portugal, and Bulgaria, have not signed the European Charter for Regional or Minority Languages. France, Italy, and Malta have not ratified it yet, while the new EU members are obliged to do so. This happened because linguistic issues are in some cases heavily politicized and linked with separatist movements, but also because these countries could be held to account before the Council of Europe for violating minority linguistic rights. Oppression. RMLs can be the language of indigenous groups or of immigrants, which constantly cope with pressure by dominant language and culture. Through history, minority languages have been largely oppressed and their development has been stopped by active repression and cultural, political, and economic dominance of the official language. Additionally, the history of repression to some extent associated minority languages with poverty, literacy, and hardship in the eyes of the population created stigma around RMLs. This is leading to a fast decreasement of RML speakers, where even within the regions where language was traditionally spoke, actual speakers constitute a minority. Because of that, many claim no legal and financial help should be offered to communities due to their own reluctance to learn the language. Additionally, some believe that a language dying actually benefits the society. Communication is easier and few resources are spent on translation and interpretation. Who's in the play? RML-speaking communities are the party that is directly interested and affected by policies and institutional approaches. Speakers are also the individual working on sustaining and revitalizing minority languages in their respective communities. But this protective attitude is lowering rapidly, especially in the younger generation. The fast decreasing of regional and minority languages speakers and the reluctance in learning and promoting the language is making speaking communities even more passive in the language protection and promotion process. Governments of member states have the most direct influence on issue of RMLs, and they often have really different approaches that can be applied on speaking communities. They have complete governance over the implementation of linguistic policies and education in their domestic legislation. Linguistic purism movements and institutions are developed in several European countries with the aim of maintaining the national language pure and untouched by regional, minority, or foreign languages. Examples can be found in the United Kingdom, and Greece, Iceland, Italy, Norway, and Latvia. Challenges. Nowadays, the fast decreasing of RML speakers and the stigma that is often present around regional and minorities communities, a pan-European action is absolutely needed in order to guarantee rights and to preserve RMLs. Which policy should be revised or put in place at a European level to maintain language diversity? Moreover, language maintenance isn't the only key to correctly safeguard RML's identity, but also to ensure the correct involving of minority communities in education, administration, and economy of the country in which they are settled. How can linguistic rights be guaranteed by local authorities without being politicized and connected with secession movements? History, protection, and education are fundamentals for ensuring the right recognition to RMLs and communities. How should RMLs be put in place in the educational system in order to avoid stigma and to preserve the language between the young population? The integration of linguistic minorities should be extended to the administrative life and to the economic field. How should governments facilitate the integration of linguistic minorities in the administrative life of the countries? And what can be done in order to relieve the acquisition of jobs for linguistic minorities or to implement a regional economic market based on them? While trying to find answers to these questions, always keep in mind what the famous linguist Joshua Fishman said in 1994. Language is not only a vehicle for the expression of thoughts, perceptions, sentiments, and values characteristic of a community, but it also represents a fundamental expression for social identity.